Please give a warm Rhode Island welcome to my good friend, Dean Kamen.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So how many people out here can say they have a United States Congressman as your press secretary? So, thank you. That was overly kind, but I'll take it. So, I guess since I now have to officially point out this is the new kindler, gentler Dean, I'm always being accused of being narrow-minded, and no matter what they ask me to talk about, I talk about first. I don't see it as narrow-minded, I think of it as focused. But I'm here as the kindler, gentler Dean to say, I don't think every company needs to be innovative. I really don't. I think that's, you people are just too narrow-minded. I don't think every government agency needs to be innovative. Only the companies and only the agencies that want to be relevant and successful need to be innovative. See? I'm learning. Anyway, I really do have, I think, a relatively short time to talk about a specific program, but this time I've been told it's okay. I'm allowed to spend the entire time on first. And so what I'd like to do is first give you the problem statement, which I think everybody's fully aware of, and then give you a particular perspective on a potential solution in the context of first. And obviously, it will only be a thinly veiled request to have you people afterwards get involved. Life is not a spectator sport. Our culture won't go on and become what we all want it to be because they do it, they being the teachers, or they being the government, or they being the somebody else while you mind your business. They is you. The business of America is business. The culture of America is driven by business. And we will all get what we deserve, and we will get what we celebrate, and we need to do something. The good news is these days I think everybody recognizes the issue. I mean, you know, everybody talks about the fact that on a just purely competitive business basis, we better get on with it in a highly competitive digital world. Everybody seems to recognize our kids are dramatically behind in most metrics. A lot of kids around the world, and we're not just talking about the Germanys and Japans and the people that we used to think of as the sophisticated technical competitors. There are 1 billion kids, 1 billion with a B, kids, that are coming along just ferociously becoming educated. And what staggers me is in America, people debate whether this is good or bad. Should we put up walls? Should we be in some way trying to stop this? That's a chilling thought. First of all, it's immoral. Second of all, how would the world ever be better off with 1 billion people that are ignorant or suffering or angry or afraid? How could the world be better off if it has recipients instead of contributors? So the real issue isn't that. First of all, by the way, whatever your political opinion is on that, how are you going to stop knowledge from moving? It's an absurd concept, especially in a digital world. So the real underlying thought there is, well, America always wanted to compete, but we always had an edge. Are we now saying, well, we don't want to compete in a fair race? I'd rather compete in a race where everybody's winning, where everybody's doing better, where the bar always goes up. It just means you have to work a little harder. And frankly, I'd rather come in second in some event in a great race than be first in a race that was so badly handicapped. And if somebody in India or China or Bangladesh turns out to be the mind that cures AIDS or cancer while we make something new, while the world is seeing more and more people being productive at a higher and higher rate capable of solving problems, that's a good thing. So the only part of it that makes me think anybody could think otherwise is they deep down don't believe that our kids really will, in an absolutely flat playing field, be able to compete. And if that's the case, we better get on with changing what our kids do with their time. Even the government and the national academies of science and engineering believe that. And they've put out this incredible, well, you ought to read it, it's very short and it has some incredible statistics in it. The gathering storm is, of course, about what's happening, particularly to kids. Now, I have to tell you that while this is exciting data, it's this year's version of it. 20 years ago, it wasn't rising above the gathering storm, all about the situation. There was one called A Nation at Risk, published by the National Academies. You can almost swap them, change a little data. It's the same story. People know this stuff. It just takes work to fix it. And it was right after A Nation at Risk came out with the same kind of data, prognostications about how our kids are going to do and not do, what's going to happen to the next generation. Everybody started, I think, every serious person I knew in government, parents, teachers, that wanted to do this, said, we're going to solve it, we're going to respond. And they did this. They came up with the supply and demand approach that we typically have in a free society. It's about supply and demand. And they all worry about, especially in education, the supply. And there they were with standards, testing, curriculum, teacher quality, merit pay, vouchers, teacher training, computers in the classroom, charter schools, STEM, lengthened. And this is a very short list. And every one of these is about fix this, measure that, do this. They come out with the rising storm. Same story. We're out there doing it. Everybody means well. But I'm an inventor, right? So I'm supposed to look at the same problem everybody else looks at and see something else. That's what I do. Sometimes I see something else and it turns out not to work. Sometimes I see something else and it works. So I said, it's not about supply and demand. It's really about demand and supply, and demand is the problem in this country. So I looked at all the initiatives to create demand among kids. Think of them all. Okay, so I said, well, that's low-hanging fruit. If we do anything there, it'll make a big difference. So I said, I'll restate the problem. It's demand and supply. Let's create an organization that will create among kids demand for science and technology. Why do I think that will work? Because we're a free society. We do get what we celebrate. Every 5-year-old kid in this country knows who Ronald McDonald is. Every 5-year-old, no matter what the socioeconomic, trust me, they know him and they crave it. They all know who Britney Spears is. They all know who Shaquille O'Neal is. You could ask a kid graduating from a good high school in the United States that spends 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, half their time theoretically on math and science, and you could ask that graduating senior, tell me the name of a single living famous scientist, engineer, mathematician. Tell me one. One. Can you tell me somebody from the NBA? Somebody from Hollywood? So it seemed to me we ought to form an organization that will create among kids some passion for science, technology, engineering, learning, developing analytic skills. And to me, it seemed pretty easy to do that because technology is really cool and it's really fun. And believe it or not, women and minorities would find it cool and fun if we didn't have a culture that beats it out of them. So we formed a nonprofit organization called FIRST. It sounds like competition. We are a sports-crazed culture. And I said, we're going to make it a sport because do what works. And in every way, make it a sport. Make it a 6 or 8 week season, highly intense, make it extracurricular. You have to earn your way onto the team. Use coaches, not teachers. People that nurture you, not are judgmental. Everything about sports is attractive to kids. Let's do that. Cheerleaders, school bands, the whole thing. But the problem is no kid will play a sport unless they see an older kid playing it. There's Little League because there's this because there's varsity because there's college sports because there's an NBA. You don't see kids playing cricket in the street. You don't see summer cricket league because we don't have professional cricket in this country. Okay, so where's the Shaquille O'Neal of science and technology? Where are the young, enthusiastic people that are as proud to be doing technology as there are people that are proud and extraordinarily good at bouncing a ball? Oh, I know where they are. They're at companies, your companies. So I said, well, that was the missing link. We'll get those extraordinary people, and hopefully among them will be women and minorities that are young and are happy about what they do, just like Shaquille is. And they drive sports cars too. You see, not all scientists and engineers are middle-aged white males with frizzy hair and German accents and lab coats, sociopaths off in the corner out to destroy the world. And so I said, we'll form this organization, we'll get the NBA, we'll get the really extraordinary technical people in the country, we'll put them in front of kids in a very fun, nurturing, exciting atmosphere, and it will give kids a sense that science and engineering are exciting. They're fun. They're opportunities that everybody should think about. And oh, by the way, it's where all the exciting jobs and careers are. And I'm not a bashful guy, and I would go into the schools and say, look, everybody, the probability that anybody in this school, you only got 1,000 students, here's statistics, we got 300 million people, there's 1,000 of you, here's how many jobs there are in professional sports. Here's the data, boys and girls. The probability that anybody in this room will ever make a nickel, ever, playing professional sports is way, way lower than the probability that you win a state lottery. You want to bank on that one? Bounce 6 hours a day away on these nonsensical dreams? Well, there's a couple of million exciting jobs out there right now, a couple of million of them for anybody that has even marginal analytic skills. So, we formed first for inspiration and recognition of science and technology. The word education is not in there. We're not educators. I'm not an educator. I don't know how to educate. Leave the teachers, leave the schools to do what they do. You're business people. What you do know how to do is create demand. What you do know how to do is impact our culture by what you sponsor, by what you celebrate. So in 1992, I said, we'll have that first sporting event. We'll see if we can put an organization together that brings technology people, teachers, government people, students together, and see if it works. And again, we stole from the playbook of sports. January, we gave out kits. We told them they had 6 weeks. They had to come back for a double elimination tournament using robots. And by the way, we say it's about building robots. No pun intended. The robots are nothing but a vehicle. We're not building robots. We're building relationships between kids and serious adults. We're building confidence among all kids about what they can do if they put their time and attention to something that matters. And so I'm now, since I probably have less than 10 minutes, going to take you on a very quick tour of what happened to FIRST over the last, we're now going into our 15th season. So, season 1, 1992, we had gotten President Bush to New Hampshire. Oh yeah, let's see. Primary season, February. Anyway, he happened to show up in Manchester. And I said, Mr. President, all of you candidates are going to be the education president. The fact is, federal government has very little to do with education, certainly K through 12. But you all invite, as presidents, the winners of the Super Bowl to the White House. You all invite the winners of the World Series, right? You throw out the first pitch. You have an incredible bully pulpit. You tell kids what's important to you. Why don't you invite the people that win our first competition to the White House? Good idea, I will. We got it on tape, he did. So did Clinton every year he was president. But anyway, there we are in 1992. That's standing in the lobby of my building in Manchester as we're announcing the game in February. 6 weeks later, this is a high school gym in Manchester, New Hampshire, where 20-some-odd teams came back, having gotten their kits in February at the kickoff where the president was there, and they competed for 2 days in this celebration of technology. And everybody in the world that heard of FIRST was in that room at that time, in that high school gym. General Electric, United Technologies, Boeing, Intel, a bunch of little companies from around the country. And I asked them all, you coming back next year? And every one of these, and most of them I was talking to the CEOs, because you want to do something big, you got to start from the top. But this was another philanthropy, you go off to the mediocre machinery. Anyway, every one of these companies, 100%, said two things. Dean, you lied to us. You said it was nights and weekends, some of our engineers mentoring kids. Dean, by the end of 2 or 3 weeks, we realized it was all night and all weekend to turn this pile of junk into something that would run. And then they'd all start to laugh, but Dean, it was so energizing. Our engineers got more out of it than the kids. They became community heroes. They remembered why they went to engineering school in the first place. It was just a great event. And it tore down the walls between a lot of these inner city schools that we asked them to adopt, and they're their plants. And so I said, how many of you will come back next year if we do a different game? 100%. I said, great, you got to bring your friends. I had the upper hand again. Bring your friends. All you big companies are on boards of other big companies. So we went to like 60 teams the second year, then over 100 the third year. By the fifth year, we still had our January, it's now become quite a tradition, kickoff up at my place. And after 15 years, we still do it. And in January, I invite you all to be there. But in January of that year, we gave out the kits, and I had to give them some bad news. You can't come back at the end of 6 weeks to do an event here in Manchester for two reasons. Number one, there's no venue in the state of New Hampshire large enough to hold everybody. And number two, we're not going to do it at 6 weeks, we're going to do it at 8 weeks, because just like every other sport, we're going to run out of Fortune 500 companies that can take parents, teachers, mentors, kids, put them on airplanes, fly them to, you can get kids jazzed up about football by having them watch the Super Bowl too on television. But if the only way they could actually touch the football and learn how to do this was put them on a plane, fly them to a place, put them in a hotel, it wouldn't work. I said, we've got to attract mid-sized and small companies to scale up first, so we're going to start doing regional events, and then we'll do a final. So in the fifth year, I said, here we are in January, we're giving out the kits in Manchester, but we're going to a different place for the finals this year. We're going to Disney. We're going to Epcot. That's the Epcot ball in the background. There were 10,000 seats, and we had something like 300 teams compete that year. We had two regionals funded by two of our great sponsors that are still with us, little company called Johnson & Johnson, who took over the Rutgers campus that year in New Jersey. They're the largest medical products company in the world. And we had a little leverage with them, but anybody I do any business with supports first. It's just the way it is. And Motorola, and they did one in Chicago. Again, since I'm running out of time, we'll skip another 5 years ahead here and say 5 years in a row we would double and redouble at Disney. And then by 2004, gave out the kits in Manchester to something like 800 teams and said, sorry, we can't go back to Disney next year. We love them. We've been there 5 years in a row, but they told us not even Disney, the world's largest entertainment company, can build an arena like this Olympic Village they built for us, big enough to hold us if we keep growing. And I didn't think we should scale first to the convenience of one company, so I said, sorry, after 5 years, we'll make a regional event, one of our then regionals, 23. But for the finals, we'll go someplace else this year. And we went to Houston, Texas, to the Astrodome. And we did our finals in Texas that year. It was a pretty cool thing. The following year, we didn't go to the Astrodome. More fittingly, we went to the home, again, of an entirely volunteer-driven, business-driven organization called the Olympics. We went to the Georgia Dome in Atlanta. And last year, by the way, we went again to Atlanta. And as you heard, I got our Congressman Langevin there. We got a senator there from the Education Committee, Senator Enzi. We got the Secretary of Commerce, interestingly, commerce, not education. We got the Secretary of Commerce to speak to the kids. Anyway, this is the pit area there, an extraordinary amount of energy among kids and engineers. You notice this team, it's all women. We had about 20 teams, we're all girls' schools. In general, we had 38% of the kids on these teams are women and minorities. This is what we look like in our first year, Manchester, New Hampshire. This is what we look like the fifth year when we started to do regionals. This is what we looked like last year. And the data on the organization is pretty extraordinary. We started out in 1992. That's team count, not student count. We have 10,500 teams, including middle schools and elementary schools now. About almost 1,200 high schools with their corporate mentor sponsors. We started out with about 400 kids in that gym. We had 125,000 kids participate last year. Entirely driven by volunteer scientists, engineers. We have tens of thousands of people committed to do this for the weird concept. It's the right thing to do. Our data looks like this. 33 cities last year holding regionals, including Canada and Israel. We have teams essentially from every continent. We have now the Little League version uses Lego bricks. We have now an intermediate version that we just started this year, and we already have 300 teams and 6 events. And now, just a couple of slides that were done by an outside group. Truth be known, I was violently against this. I don't have enough time to tell you exactly how stupid I am, but we finally got big enough that people said, you got to go to foundations to get you to help. And, you know, this thing is, it's all grassroots, and we went to some big foundations, and we went to the Ford Foundation. And I thought, they're the people, you know, they care about this, they're going to see our great data. Where are your longitudinal studies? Where is the cost? Wow, these guys are tougher than the Wall Street guys. And I didn't have any of that. I said, look, guys, if this program was marginal, if you needed statistics to show whether this program had an impact on kids, I wouldn't have stuck into this thing all these years. It's life-changing stuff. I quickly learned from them that the plural of anecdote is not data, and they would not accept that. So they gave us like $600,000 and said, you're going to use all that money to go back, talk to the teams, the sponsors, the teachers, and figure out whether this program, no, if you give us that kind of money, I'll get 100 teams. No, you're going to collect data with it. I was violently against it, but I have to tell you that because I'm now going to show you data. We did not do this study. We did not collect it. The money went from the Ford Foundation to Brandeis University, who has expertise in collecting and analyzing data. They spent a couple of years and published the following, which I'd encourage you to look at the whole report, but this is the data that came out of their analysis of our program. 50% more of the kids would go to college. There was a 3 times, not 3%, 3 times rate of change in ones that would choose engineering. 9 times higher rate of being interns, mostly with our corporate sponsors. 4 times more likely to pursue careers. 2.5 times more likely to be community involved. This is independently 3 times higher rate among women. 1.5 times more likely to pursue engineering degrees. This one particular school, I'm told since I have 2 minutes, I'll stop. We'll look at this. There's $8 million was given out last year on stage at the Nationals among the universities. All of which is to say education isn't about blaming the teachers or our schools or our 19th century model. It's not about filling a pail. It's about lighting a fire. And business has to do that by getting involved. Thank you.